Morning, everyone. I've never done this with the headset, so I feel a bit kind of Britney Spearsy. But cool. So yeah, museum websites, do's, don'ts, and an AI-first future. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a question first. So if AI comes along, wipes out all of your website traffic, what do you do? So it's worth taking a few seconds to just think about that initially. But we're sort of heading in that direction already. So Gartner predicts that search engine volume will drop by 25% next year due to AI chatbots and other virtual agents. So I thought a quick show of hands would be good, because I did a conference last week and it will be interesting to compare the results. So if you think back to the last time you searched for something online, hands up who used Google for that? Okay, nice. And then hands up who used ChatGPT or an AI assistant? Interesting. So you're kind of around 5-10%. The conference last week was kind of business leaders and stuff, and that was about 50-50, which was pretty mad. So that's the direction we're heading in. So a bit of context. So yeah, are you ready? Essentially, in this talk, I wanted to cover a bit of the context, where we are, some key AI terms and techniques that you and your teams should be looking at to use, do's and don'ts for your website now, kind of stuff to think about so you're getting ready for that AI future, and then kind of practical tools and resources as well. So just quickly, a bit about me. My name's Neil Lewin, MD and owner of Semantic. So we're a UK-based digital agency that brings attractions and museums to life online. We started in 1999, so kind of decades of experience in the sector, and then we've rolled all that experience into our Loop platform. So that's a website as a service solution to get you guys online much more quickly and easily than a traditional bespoke build. And then in terms of the clients, loads of clients in the sector, so I won't kind of labour the point on that, but yeah, lots of clients there. And we've got an offer running at the moment with our Loop approach. So if you sign up in May, you get kind of free upgrades, free content migration, and that kind of thing. So the short version of that is, if you're struggling to get online, struggling with your website, just come and talk to us, and then we can kind of help point you in the right direction. All right, so getting into it. In terms of the context, so I thought a quick history lesson first. As I said, Semantic started in 1999, back when everyone had computers like this. Everything was in black and white. Well, not quite black and white. We did have colour. But obviously taking the computers to meetings and stuff was a bit of a drag. And everyone was obviously on kind of, well, it was just as broadband was becoming a thing. So back then, it was enough just to have a website online. And with Semantic going for several decades, I joined in 2008, so not right at the beginning, but we've obviously witnessed quite a few of these seismic shifts online. So obviously, as you go into the 2000s, your website needed to do more and more, so it was all about the e-commerce and driving transactions or sign-ups. And then in the 2010s, as you started to get the smartphones, it was all the mobile-first side of things. And you kind of move on into the 2020s, and the more recent kind of years, that's all around expanding the whole guest experience. So now kind of users are expecting the technology to be seamless, super intuitive, and fast and easy to use. And we sort of see the website as this kind of this system and tool to then expand the whole guest experience. So they're kind of engaged right the way before their visit, during, and after. And then what's next? We think the AI bots are going to come along and start doing the heavy lifting for your guests. So rather than the guests having to work out how much are tickets or where all the experience is, that kind of thing, you're going to start to have these AI bots coming in and doing the heavy lifting. And we can kind of track this to various levels. The fonts have gone a bit weird, but that's kind of Microsoft for you. So the Loop stack, we've called this. As you start off, back in 99, it was enough just to have a website. So we're online, great, tick. Then as we go into the 2000s, you can buy your tickets. Then obviously having it working great on phones. Then the experiential side, supporting that whole visit. And then where we think it's going is that kind of AI level, so the level 5 on our Loop stack, where it assists and adapts intelligently to your guests' needs. And we think probably most museums are around kind of level 3. They're sort of just getting to grips with a mobile-first website, just as all this AI stuff's coming down the track. and then there's going to be a whole new thing to try and get used to as well. The other thing to bear in mind is the kind of shifting guest expectations as well. So I always think back to like the 90s where, people would have spent hours just programming a video recorder to try and record a TV show. So like now, guests are expecting the tech is absolutely seamless. They used to kind of browse the internet just for fun, just to see like the websites and what was on there. And now it's like, right, I've got a problem, I need an answer, give me the answer, and then move on. So we can kind of map through all these different guest experiences. So people are expecting quick answers. They're obviously all on their mobiles. So with our clients, we see it's kind of 80, 90% are mobile first. Obviously, it needs to be totally secure, reliable, really fast. Easy to use and get help is obviously super important. Making sure your value proposition's absolutely front and center. That's kind of a common mistake we see with museums where you get kind of sidetracked with all the new shiny stuff, but without then showing your core value proposition. So making sure you're covering that. Obviously, you've got a super short time to create a great first impression, like 3 to 5 seconds. So if your website hasn't grabbed a guest in that time, then you're kind of struggling from the start. Accessibility is super important as well, and often with museums, you can get kind of grants to help with digital transformation and making sure all your collections and everything are accessible online. I mean, it's like 1 in 10 adults in the UK have disabilities or challenges so that they have kind of specific access needs. Making sure you've got a really frictionless purchase, obviously slightly different for museums if you've got free entry, but if you do charge, then make sure you've got mobile checkouts enabled, so it's so super frictionless and easy to get through that purchase journey, and then making sure your kind of value proposition's targeted, relevant, and then that overall kind of enhancing the visit. So there's a lot there to think about. So how do you kind of summarize all that into a quick statement? So essentially you just need to think bigger. So thinking back to that timeline, it's no longer enough just to be online. Your website has to stand out, empower your team, and support guests at every stage of their experience. So yeah, thinking bigger. And then I put a quick practical approach here, just so that everyone can kind of take this away and start building it into your weekly routines, because otherwise you sit through all these talks, you're like, oh yeah, that's really great, and then what do you do afterwards? So quick practical approach we find works really well. Get your diary and some coffee, and then just do this kind of weekly mobile website review. So if you're all kind of just on your computers all the time, meeting up, just put 15, 20 minutes in your diary every week so that you can just meet with your team, ban laptops, so set a transcript going on your phone so you can get meeting notes from that, and then just have this weekly mobile review. Get into a habit of doing that, and then you can kind of search for your traction on Google or ChatGPT, see what the first impressions are like, check through any key journeys, and obviously start testing some of these new AI tools as well. In that little, like 15, 20 minutes, works best with a coffee as well. And then we also say to kind of bunch on this monthly team review as well. So just a 1.5 hour thing. This one works much better with food as well. Again, ban your laptops, just have phones, and then try and get the wider team in as well. So you're getting these kind of feedback loops with kind of guest comments, and you can just identify these little nuggets. Go through any kind of key booking journeys as well, so that you can make sure that's all working really seamlessly on phones. So yeah, quick practical approach. So weekly reviews, monthly reviews, get that in your diary, and then it's just a nice, easy way to start stacking on other habits as well. So jumping into the AI and websites, how am I doing for time? All right. So just a brief bit of background about AI, because I could probably talk for the next 3 hours just on AI, but I suspect you probably want to go around to some of the other talks. So AI has obviously been around for like kind of 50 years or more. So AI is where computers are mimicking human intelligence. The generative AI is the new thing over the last few years, where it's using all the AI to create stuff. So whether that's content, text, images, the GPT bit on ChatGPT, that's what that stands for, but you don't really need to worry about that. the main thing to remember there is that AI isn't magic, right? So if you've got leaders and senior teams and they're coming and going, oh, well, can't we just use AI for all this? It's not magic. So you've just got to remember it's all just huge amounts of data, and then that's processed with statistics and coding and all the algorithms and stuff, and then that's what creates the new thing. And the other thing to remember that's the big shift just in the last year, because I was doing like talks about AI a year ago, where we were just kind of dabbling with ChatGPT, but now you can kind of upload images to it, you can generate music, voice stuff. There's Notebook LM from Google. I don't know if anyone's tried that, but it can create like a whole AI podcast with two AI people talking together. It's kind of mad. And the screen recordings is an interesting one as well. So you can stream your desktop up to Google, and then it will tell you how to use the app and tell you kind of what you're missing and kind of coach you through with your voice in real time. So yeah, more than just chat, loads and loads of different options. Quick safety warning as well. So again, I won't kind of labor this, but obviously it can be really biased because it's all trained with all the human, the vast knowledge of humans, so any biases and prejudices in there all can filter through to the AI. Obviously, by definition, it's non-original, so maintaining that kind of creativity is tricky because it's all just kind of derivative and moving on from what the humans have done. It can make stuff up, that's a big one, so if you're using it for anything important, make sure you've checked, otherwise you can get in trouble with that. Copyright is sort of all untested, so that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out in the courts. That's all kind of just something to keep an eye on. Security, if you're using any of these tools internally, you've probably gone to talks with like saying to get AI policies in place, that kind of thing, so make sure you've opted out of your data being used to train up the models, and obviously then the wider it can be abused in society with fake news and everything. I won't get into any of that. And you've also got environmental impacts as well, which is going to be quite challenging because it's obviously much more carbon and computationally intensive than typical web searches. Some other key terms that we think are going to be really, really important for you and your team. So prompt engineering, we think is going to become as much of a skill as email, right? So you wouldn't employ someone now that couldn't do email. We think in like 3 to 5 years, being able to use AI and create great prompts is going to be as fundamental as being able to use email and use a computer. The agentic AI is kind of where it's going. So that's if you can't really be bothered to make all these prompts because it's quite a lot of effort, you can get the AI to then do it and just work on your behalf autonomously. So that's worth keeping an eye on. There's kind of vibe coding, vibe marketing. I don't know if people have heard of those terms, but that's where you set the AI off doing a task and it carries on. And then the big one for us that we'll focus on for the next few minutes is the AEO. So this is answer engine optimization, and that seems to be the new term for SEO, right? So is this the death of SEO? So we think this is going to shift more towards becoming answer engine optimization, because if you compare what you're doing on a typical Google search, it's a bit small probably, isn't it, for you guys? But if you searched on Google, you might say attractions near me for 6-year-olds, and then you get some results. Most of it's sponsored, some of it might be relevant, and then it's a bit of a faff for people to go in. But if you put in that query in ChatGPT, obviously you've got more room, so you can be more verbose and more accurate. So I put in this kind of, where are the top attractions near me that has a cafe and loads to do for my 6-year-old? Please show budget, time to get there, some of the top things we can see. Oh, and she's super into Egypt at the moment too. So I can make it really relevant, specific and personalised. But at the moment, the results back were a bit crap, I thought. There wasn't much in there that was that inspiring. But it is really easy for me to go in and refine this. So then say, oh, can you give me a bit more detail? Can you add the budget and all this kind of stuff? And I keep saying to kind of clients and our team, like, this is the worst these tools are ever going to be. So they're only going to keep getting better and better. And even compared to the talks I was doing this time last year, the growth is crazy. So yeah, the tools will only get better. Obviously, users can search more how they want, and they can kind of refine and get more info straight from the tools. So what do we do about it? So to succeed in AEO, your website needs to be the best place for guests to get answers to questions, essentially. So if you only remember one takeaway from the whole talk, that's the one. So you always want to be looking at AEO and your website becoming your answer hub, right? So anything you do, it's like, oh, how does this answer this guest query? And then there's like 4 areas in this, I think. So there's the kind of technical side, the content, the kind of structured data, and then the wider automation for the front-end guest experience. So if we dive into each one quickly, but the tech side is good news, because ultimately, at the moment, if you've got well-optimized SEO, then that's really good for the AEO, right? So you need high-performing sites. They need to be really easy for the engines to crawl. They need to be accessible, and then they need to have all the right structure and markup, none of the broken links and all that kind of stuff. So the SEO, if you're not doing much SEO at the moment, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit for AEO. And then it comes onto the kind of content and more SEO, but content is a big part of SEO, obviously making sure you've got relevant content that kind of engages your guests. So making sure you've got the best content for your guests. And actually that's easier than ever to create great content because you can put that into ChatGPT and get it to rewrite it for you and all that kind of thing. So yeah, always aiming for the best content for your guests, keeping that really targeted and relevant, and keeping those strong SEO underpinnings, but always coming back to that, what question is this content answering, and can we answer that question a bit better? So structured data as well is the third area. So FAQs are your friend. So I think now they're becoming even more important. You sort of want to create this whole knowledge base for your guests and internally as well. And then the more accurate that knowledge base can be, you then sort of end up with a single source of truth for your attraction. And that means then the data going into the AI is going to be way more accurate and going to be more, is going to get better results coming out as well. The challenge is there's not really a playbook for the AEO kind of AI optimization. So yeah, at the moment it's just getting the best content, the best data. The schema markup as well is a really good one if you've not heard of that before. The easy one on that is just ask your web agency if you've got schema tags, and they should be able to tell you yes or no. But schema tags is basically a way of just tagging up data, so you can be like, oh, here's our venue name, here's the events we've got on, here's the time, start time, end time, that kind of thing. So schema is really good. It kind of first came through, I think, 20 years or so ago, and then it's been bubbling up, and now it's really, really important for the AEO. Making sure you've got all your open hours and key information in easy formats, and then hopefully, if you can get all of that right, your website can then become that knowledge hub, and then that can start feeding out to other tools you use, like your apps and that kind of thing as well. And then finally, I'll just touch on this really, but the guests are obviously seeking out fast answers, so they're not going to be kind of browsing your site for fun so much anymore. So anything we can do then to add things to do the heavy lifting for the guests, so like chatbots and help centers and easy customer service is going to be setting you apart from the competition. We've got a client at the moment that's trying to replace a bunch of customer service staff just with voice agents to do their customer service. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's that balance, because it's that kind of people come first, so you don't want to avoid over-relying on the tech, because obviously what's convenient for you guys might not be convenient for your guests. And then finishing up with some practical tools and resources. So we've got our kind of digital survival guide that I think Karina was handing out and putting on the chair. So if you haven't got a copy of that, come and see us on our stand. So that's got most of this stuff in as well. So you've got a nice little keepsake, bit of bedtime reading. So yeah, we touched on that kind of mobile-first website reviews process. So that's just a really easy one. 15 minutes every week with your team just keeps you kind of moving in the right direction. We kind of developed this NICE framework, which is nice to kind of cover. But again, I haven't got time to go into all the detail. But the idea being all of your online activity should fall into one of those 4 areas. And I was going to go through each one of these in turn, but again, it was coming out way too long for the talk. But yeah, loads and loads of stuff in there. We've also got like a website health check questionnaire that's in that little booklet as well. So if you're really not sure where to start, then maybe the first exercise you do in those weekly sessions would just be going through that and see where you're kind of falling down or where you're doing particularly well. The LIFT model is a really good one. So if you're kind of struggling to get feedback from senior people, or they're kind of saying, oh, well, I just don't like the reds, and it's all a bit vague and a bit subjective, then you can start tying the LIFT model to it, and this gives you a great kind of, you've got to make sure your value proposition's front and center, and that it's as clear and relevant as possible without kind of worrying your guests or distracting them. So you can kind of analyze individual pages using that, or the whole kind of guest journey as well. Feedback loops and research. It's never been easier to do this online, so you can do heat maps, user testing, surveys. Easy to analyze that stuff with AI as well. And then we're just kind of looking for nuggets to test and tweak. And then AI tools for internal processes. It can basically just be used for anything. So if you haven't used ChatGPT in a while, or Google's one, then you can kind of just go in. It's never been easier to use these tools as well. You don't even need, like if you can write text messages, you can prompt AIs and stuff, but we think it's going to be used for pretty much everything in the years to come, particularly around like if you're brainstorming ideas or you need to sanity check things, that's really useful. Or if you're looking at getting designs done, it can be quite good to kind of just get concept designs and then use those to go back and forth with your designers. So it can just shortcut and save a bunch of time at the beginning. Interesting, that's gone fun. So and then AI tools for internal use. Again, just brainstorm some of the tasks, test, learn and refine, put those into your weekly sessions, and just choose one and start with it. Make sure you've opted out of using your data. There's some great YouTubers I follow for AI as well, so if you're more into this stuff, then you can kind of geek out on some of those. And I think that's pretty much everything. There's a lot to cover. Do the practical weekly
whirlwind
thing. It was. I put a load in.
Thank you, Neil. I really liked the idea, the perspective that you had of the tools are never going to get any worse than they are today. They're only going to get better. I think that's a brilliant perspective.
Yeah.
We've got a very full room this morning. Have we got any questions from the audience? Come on, you lovely lot. There's one. I knew if I applied some pressure.
Hi, I was just wondering, obviously there's the paid subscriptions and the free subscriptions. Are there any particular free ones that you'd recommend that are good for images or video or producing written content? So I know the paid ChatGPT is much better than the free one, so are there any?
Yeah, I think, the free stuff Google's pumping out is pretty amazing. So try all the Gemini stuff initially. But then otherwise the kind of paid ChatGPT one is really good, and that's like $20 a month or something. So it's worth trying it for a month and comparing both, I think. But and I think Midjourney's still the leading one on the image generation specifically, but the ChatGPT stuff is massively caught up now. But it can, this time next week it will probably change. So.
Any other questions? Yeah, I've got one over here. Excuse me, Neil. Hold the microphone nice and close to you.
Hi. I think traditionally i.e. in the last few years, tried to block bots, especially when talking about ticketing or those sorts of platforms. But this might show my lack of understanding, but this sounds like actually we kind of want to be leaning into them a bit more and using them for AI on those search terms. But how do you balance that?
It's going to be one to keep an eye on, I think, because if all the other attractions and museums are allowing the bots to crawl it, then you're sort of going to have to let the bots in. And I sort of see, because you could argue is that sort of like just blocking Google? It's like, okay, well, you probably don't want to do that. So we sort of see it as you're almost building your websites for your guests, and then like the AI guests as well. Like it's almost a new type of user browsing your site. I would have thought, is it more, I guess if you're worried about them kind of scraping all your kind of collections data and that kind of thing, so it is just going to be a balance, I think, kind of per brand and per venue, where it's like, oh, okay, well, is the trade-off of that worth the increased visitors and the increased visibility in these tools? Hopefully that helps.
Any other questions yet?
I always have a habit of leaving audiences in stunned silence.
Oh, I told you there was going to be questions. I have faith in my audience.
I just wondered if there are any tools that you can advise so you can see to what extent your website is being scraped by an AI tool. Is that something where we
Ooh.
could focus on expansion of, if we want them to see our answer to something, how do we up that?
That's
Great
good.
question.
Yeah.
I've not come across any, actually. Have you come across any?
No,
Because
there's
there's no playbook. That's the challenge.
There's
Yes.
loads of tools for SEO,
Yeah.
isn't there? So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you can plug your site in and see how well you're ranking. But I've not seen any sites that do the similar of how well is your site ranking in AI.
Yeah. No, and the ones we use, like Moz or SEMrush, they can kind of show you, because do you know Google are doing these AI overviews at the top? That's kind of what prompted me to go down this rabbit hole, really. But we kind of thought, well, if Google are replacing the organic SEO with these kind of AI made-up things, then how do we make sure we're kind of at the top there? But so Moz and SEMrush can show you if you've been featured in one of those. But in terms of whether you've been in ChatGPT and stuff, that's all going to be new and kind of looking at referrals through from analytics and that kind of thing, I think, for now.
I think that's a brilliant question. I'm going to go away when we say
Yeah,
I think
me
that's
too.
X.
Me too.
Can I ask something that's very similar to that? You've talked a little bit about working so that you do get that, that you do all of the AEO to get your site's content becoming part of the answers that the tools are spitting out. Have you got any good examples of museums or heritage sites where when you do ask questions, ask questions about science and Babbage's analytical engine, does the Science Museum come spitting out as an answer? Or
Yeah, well, I was kind of trying it with my kind of Southampton thing. So you were getting the kind of Sea City Museum down there coming
Oh,
up,
really?
and the different things. So I think that's where it kind of goes back to, if you've got strong SEO, then you're sort of halfway there. But yeah, you need that kind of, like we're seeing clients now where they'll get complaints from guests because the guests have said, we thought you're open until 6, and they're like, no, well, where did you get that from? And they'll have the screenshot from Google's AI summary where it's just wrong. So it's that kind of
just
trying to-
hallucinating an answer?
yeah, or just old out-of-date information.
Right.
So you've just got to try and make sure you're controlling your knowledge base of information and all your kind of answers as much as you can. So I think that's kind of the first step, and then over the next year, like this time next year, it will be a totally different set of tools, and we'll be talking about agent swarms, and it's going to be quite entertaining.
We got time for one more question? Have I got anybody in the audience that would like to ask another question? I'll just stare at you, make you.
So
I think
it's coffee time, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
That's
we
the
are in the
problem
way of
there.
everybody having
Yeah.
a break. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we thank Neil for such an amazing talk?
Yeah.